G'day everyone, welcome to Shane's Shed. First up, this is a bit of a different intro for me today. I'm actually filming this intro after I've already done the job. So today we're going to be changing out the power steering pump in my 105 series Landcruiser. Now, first off, this is my 300th upload to YouTube, so yeah, that's pretty cool. And I've only just clicked over to 4,000 subscribers, so it's only taken me like 5 years of filming this stuff to get there. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool milestone. But so a little bit later, once we've done the job, I'm just going to have a chat about what's the actual outcome of all this job, because yeah, it didn't solve the issue I was hoping to. Also worth noting, I've actually invested in a microphone. So this is the first video that I've been shooting with, and I ballsed up the volume control. So yeah, my voice is a little bit, it's not quite right, but it's still audible. So yeah, that's all good. Let's get into it. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you'd know this was making a little bit of an engine noise when I first bought it. So this is what it sounded like. Yeah, so I've done a little bit of an investigation in my last video. I'll throw that link over here or here, whichever side the card comes up. You think I'd get used to this by now, but yeah, no. So yeah, go check that out and you can figure out how I've discovered. So what I've nailed it down to is the power steering pump. So I've got a new power steering pump and we're going to throw that in today. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the car up onto jack stands here. That just means, because I'm draining all the oil, all the power steering oil out, when it comes to bleeding it, I'll be able to just turn the wheel back and forth, left and right to the full extent, just to force some of the oil out. So, not the oil out, force the air out, and force all the old oil as well. And we're going to put some fresh stuff in as well. So being the 1FZ FE engine, the power steering pump is on the bottom of the left-hand side of the engine. So just right there. So we're going to pull that out there. It's only 2 bolts that hold it in. There's the high pressure union and just the low pressure, just a hose clamp. Not really necessary, I don't think, but I'm just going to remove this plate out of the way as well, just to give a little bit of extra room for your hands up through this little gap here. Alright, so the 4 bolts for this little plate here, just 12 mil. So there's 2 at the front here and 2 either side of the chassis. So they're easy enough to pull off. Those 4 bolts removed. This takes it's a little bit of a wiggle to get it out, but easy enough. So with that plate out, you can see we've got a little bit clearer access into that power steering pump, which makes things a lot easier for us. So the nut that is on here is a 14 mil as well. So you'll need either your 14 mil socket. There is only 2 bolts that hold it in here. So there's one here, and basically one at the very top, which I really can't film because it's just an impossible spot to get. It's even hard to reach. You got the low pressure line here, which is just a hose clamp, just a spring type clip. And then you got the banjo bolt up the top here, which is a 22. Now you'll probably need an open end or a ring spanner to get to that. I don't think you may have enough room to get a ratchet on top, but we should be able to get past this plastic shield and just come in from the side of the chassis up here. So I don't even know if you'll see that little light there. There you go, come in from the top of the chassis, and yeah, there you go. You can probably get that top bolt that's on the power steering pump. I don't know if you see it there. I'm kind of holding the camera up out of the way. Okay, so I'm just going to get in from this side of the chassis just to undo that that banjo bolt. So it's pretty easy to get to from this side. And we'll probably lose a bit of oil once we've done this. So make sure your drip tray is in the right spot. Unlike me, well, I just missed it. Now, I'm not sure how much of this you're going to see. But I'm going to get just my pair of pliers onto that spring clip and hopefully get it up out of the way, and I can get that hose off. So I'm just undoing all these before I do the main retainer bolts for the power steering pump. Alright, so if you've been around cars for a little while, you're probably going to know a lot of oil hoses, vacuum hoses, all that sort of stuff. Once they get a few years on them, they get incredibly stiff and hard to get off. This is what I'm running into with the feed line for the power steering pump. There's just, the hose is just that hard. It's impossible to get off those barbs without destroying it. So I'm just going to, because it's easier access up here, I'm just going to put a little slice in the side of it here, just so I can open it up and get it out, and then I'll just replace that whole hose. That'll be easy to replace just with some standard bay oil hose, no problem there. So just dropping this straight through the front there. You can see I've left that hose on there. I'll get that off. This will be easy enough to replace. You can see where I've had to cut that way there. I just put a cut down there because this thing is, that hose is so hard it doesn't even flex. Anyway, in the meantime, we're going to get this off. Now, we need to undo this nut and pull this gear off because we need to transfer this gear to the next pump. So you'll need a 12-point socket. It's a 7mm. I'm just going to give it a go without holding this, just with the rattle gun. We may be able to zap it off, but if not, we'll have to throw it in the vise. So I'm just going to use my rag just to try and hang on to it. And it helps if you've got a good battery in your rattle gun. Alright, let's give that a go now. There we go. I'm just going to leave this nut on here a bit because this is on a tapered shaft, right? So the next step, we're just going to try and pull this gear off. So I've just got this 3-legged puller, and she just should slide straight up underneath that gear. Yeah, and just make sure all your legs are in nice as far as you can, so you don't put too much stress on the edge of your gears. And we'll just wind that up. There we go. She's loose. So you can see that's just a tapered shaft. So as soon as that lets go, she comes off pretty easy. Now, your replacement pump may or may not have the Woodruff key, so just keep an eye on that. Mine has a replacement, so we'll keep that with that there. Now, later on, I might strip this and see if I can find out if there's anything in particular that was making the noise in it. But for now, we're just going to throw the new pump straight in. So I've got the new pump in the vise here. The Woodruff key just sits in there. They're a half moon shape, so they do fall out a bit easily. If you want, you can throw like a little bit of grease or something in to hold them in place. I'll just throw a little bit of O-ring grease on the back of it there. Yeah, and that'll just hold it in place, won't fall out. I'll throw a little bit of that grease on there. Now, this I'm just going to quick look at this gear just to make sure that there's actually no damage on it that's causing the that knocking. Alright, I've had a look at this gear. It all looks pretty good, so we're going to just slide that straight on there. Obviously nut goes on, so we're just going to have to try and hold that. I'll probably try and hold it in the vise gently. So sorry for the bit of a crappy view. I'm hoping this will work okay. I can get enough rotation. It's 74 Newton meters, and you just need something soft in your vise so you don't damage your gears. And obviously before this goes in, make sure that your new O-ring is in place. Now I always just throw a bit of O-ring grease on there for a couple of reasons. Mainly is it helps stick the O-ring in place and it doesn't fall out while you're trying to stick it in the car. So I got to get a new hose for this, and we'll try and get some new copper washers for the banjo bolt as well. Alrighty, so I've just thrown a new bit of 5/8 hose on there and just cut it to the same length as the old one.
we're just going to stick it back up. Obviously new hose clamp. I've just left that cap on there for the moment to just keep the dirt out. Obviously undone it so it's not super tight, so I can just undo it with my fingers. I'll just point out as well on the new one, so this whole fitting here, there's just one bolt there. You could get this whole union out if you wanted to. It's probably, you know, it would make getting it out easier. Just unbolt this, pull this union out. You probably need to throw a new O-ring in there, but to be honest, the old hose was pretty knackered, so it doesn't hurt to replace it. Now the two nuts that retain the power steering pump onto the engine block, 36 Newton meters, so not much really there. So the banjo bolt has a 50 Newton meter torque setting. Like I said, it's pretty hard to get the ratchet up in there anyway, so I just give it a good nip and should be fine. So let's get this power steering pump back in the car, and we'll get it all bled up, and yeah, it should be hopefully good to go with no noise. Alright, so now that everything's all back in, it's time to refill the power steering fluid up. So I've taken off the return line from to the power steering reservoir, and I've just dropped that down under the chassis and just dropping it straight down there into a bucket. And what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to fill it up, turn the steering wheel left and right a few times, bleed any air out, flush any old oil. Now I have run some hydraulic fluid just to flush everything through it. Now I'm going to top it up with the with Dex 3. So Dextron ATF is the recommended oil for this power steering system, so should only take a couple of litres to do all the flush, I think. So anyway, let's get into it. So the simple thing is, we'll just top up this reservoir. Now the new fluid, being ATF, is a nice bright red, so we'll be able to tell once we've flushed everything out. So that is full there. So let's just turn the steering wheel back and forth, and we'll bleed some oil out. Bleed some oil out, and some air as well, I guess. But just going back and forth. Now you could start the engine up briefly and pump it through. This works just as well for this particular vehicle. So once I've done a few runs back and forth, I'll just re-top up the reservoir again. Just keep it way full. Now that initially looked like I'm getting some nice red fluid out. I'm just going to hook my camera up to my phone just so I can see from when I'm spinning the wheel. Now I've only flushed through just on a litre of oil there now, so I get to see what colour oil comes out now. Yeah, it's nice red, so might call that good enough. We'll hook that top hose back up the reservoir. So once I've hooked it back up, we'll start the engine up and swing it back and forth, bleed a bit more air out, top up where we need to as well. No noise, so that's nice. Like I said, just run that steering back and forth a couple of times, then we can check the level. So I'm pretty happy that Jesus. Oh, making a mess. Ah, you've probably seen that before I did. Now I'm just going to top this up to the right level now, and then we're going to start doing a bit more bleeding. Now I'm going to put the lid back on during running, because from past experience, when this was running, it spits oil out everywhere and makes a mess, and I don't want to repeat that again. So we've changed the power steering pump out. Unfortunately, it's still making a noise. So my original diagnosis, when I just pulled this original power steering pump out and started the engine and it was all quiet, was probably a little bit flawed in a way. And then later on, when I was bleeding the air out of the system and I started the car up, it was quiet. But then shortly after I've sort of got everything bled up properly, it's gone back to being the same. So my initial inspection of the oil pump gear
I couldn't really see any faults with it. It's not to say there's not a fault with that gear. There may be something going on there, and as soon as I'm getting the extra load of the power steering pump, it's creating a bit of noise. Could be a fault with the oil pump itself. I'm not 100% sure. Now, without tearing into things a bit more, yeah, I'm kind of don't know what's going on just yet. Unfortunately, to really dive into it properly is a big job. Now, I could remove the crank pulley, and there is a cover that I can remove to access the end of the oil pump. I could possibly see if there's any cracks in that oil pump. That's probably an easy thing to check. I could get a new gear for the existing power steering pump and throw that on there, see if it makes a difference. Those are two relatively easy things I can do sort of now. To go much further than that is a big job. I mean, ideally, to remove the timing chain case, the head needs to come off, and also the lower sump and the upper sump need to come off as well. To be honest, this engine's got 480,000 Ks on it. When if you start pulling things down to that extent, to be honest, I might as well be looking at doing a rebuild and freshening it up completely. So I've kind of got to figure out what my options are. I can get the timing gear case off in theory without removing the head. The trouble is the head sits down on top of the timing case, so there is a bit of a head gasket that sits in between there. So I don't really want to go tearing anything and risk damaging the end of that head gasket. Could lead into some troubles down the track. Yeah, and really without pulling everything apart to inspect it and see what's gone wrong, yeah, I'm kind of guessing at the moment. So I'm just going to have to try and figure out what I'm going to do. Just watching the dog, he doesn't knock the tripod over. Yeah, so I've kind of got to figure out what I'm going to do. So drop me a comment below. Tell me what you do in this situation. To really dive into it properly, like I said, it's going to be a big job. So yeah, anyway, we'll see what we can come up with, and I'll keep you posted. So if you want to see where this goes and you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching and you got this far, please just hit a like. That's pretty much as simple as I'd ask. And yeah, if you really want to leave a comment, I encourage you to drop a comment. Anyway, enough of all that stuff. We'll see you on the next video. Cheers, guys.